Welcome back to Marriage Hot Takes. I'm your host, Aaron Degler, along with my wife, Kim. I'm so glad you joined us today. Um, each week, we like to share a hot take with you. After we talk about our topic, we always want to leave you with a hot take that you can take into your relationship, into your marriage, and it really sparks conversation. That is really our goal. Today, we're going to talk something about it's a little bit challenging. We actually had this conversation earlier as we were discussing topics and what we wanted to talk about today, and kind of had this idea, but it took me a moment to be able to share it with Kim because I was like,
it made you emotional.
Yes. So, but the hope is that we can get through this today without having to get emotional.
Because then we stopped talking about it and just said, yeah, it's a go.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
And we're like, well, what we're going to talk about, I don't know. Let's just go for it.
Okay.
So one of our favorite movies is The Notebook.
It's the best.
It's the best. If you haven't ever watched The Notebook, it's
the
just
best cry.
It is. It's just the most wonderful story. It starts with an older couple, and the gentleman's reading a book to this lady.
In a facility.
And really she has dementia.
Mm-hmm.
But he's reading this book to her, and spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it, this can be a spoiler alert. But
he was reading her a story.
He's reading her a story, and it's from a book, and he's reading it to her. And so as he's reading it to her, then the movie goes into them playing the parts as really he's reading it out. And as the movie ends, it turns out that the story he is reading to her is really their love story. And that's really his wife. And she doesn't remember that. There's moments when she has clarity as that disease allows sometimes, is that clarity. And she recognizes as who he is, and he takes those for just a moment. But it's just the sweetest thing. And again, spoiler alert, how the movie really ends. Do you want to share how it ends?
He goes, and because he has put himself in that facility as well. So they're living there together, and he goes and gets in her bed and lays with her, and they die the same night.
Mm-hmm. They go in the next morning and find him, and they passed away. And so that kind of brings us around to our topic today.
Mm-hmm.
Is in our vows. We both, as we've said before, we both had nice church weddings.
The first time.
The second time, we were married at Justice of the Peace.
Kelly's mom married us.
I've done a couple weddings of ordained couple weddings, and all of them asked the same thing, or part of the vows were all the same, and it was to honor, love, cherish. And then the end of those vows are till death do you part.
Yes.
And all marriages end.
Every marriage ends.
Every marriage ends in one of two ways.
Death or divorce.
Or divorce. And when we get married, I don't know if we think about that, every marriage ends.
Every marriage will end. And it's up to you on how that ends.
And so whether it's death or divorce, as we've talked about before, it's in our daily choices.
It is.
And as we think about till death do you part, and we think about that movie, The Notebook, when he goes in to lay with her and they die in their sleep. Till death do us part. And as we're talking about this, as we think about if we're in that moment, I might not even be able to look at you when I talk about this.
Oh,
look away. Kind of like Ray Stevens. Don't look, Ethel. I done been mooned. I mean, you brought up a song about bring back my boomerang. So
I did.
I can bring up a little Ray Stevens. Don't look, Ethel. Don't look, Ethel.
Laugh, laugh, laugh.
Yes. That's our way. That's our coping technique.
It is. It's how we cope.
Yeah. You can use it if you want. But our question really is, and our question was to ourselves also, and we really couldn't discuss it much, um, only because we get too emotional. So we thought, why not do it while we're recording? Let
Let's turn the
everybody see
camera
it.
on and
Yeah, because
discuss it.
that sounds like a really good idea.
Yes.
So if we were in that situation, if you were, and you knew it was your last day married, because today was the day until death do you part. If we were that fortunate to know that that was that last day, what would we want to look over our marriage and say that was a good marriage?
That was a successful marriage.
That was, and again, when we say successful, my definition of successful, your definition of successful, those of each of you would be different of what that looks like. And so it really is an individual question of how does that, what does that look like? And I think sometimes that we think about our marriage and that's what we work toward. We think about it. But what if we thought about it at the end and worked our way back? If we were on our deathbed together, and and maybe it's not both of you. Maybe, I mean, I don't know if any of us or many of us are that fortunate.
Right.
It might be a death of a spouse, that you have that opportunity to hold their hand. Don't look, Ethel. Um, but if you had that opportunity, and maybe it could be either one. It could be husband, it could be wife. But individually, as you look back, what would that look like?
Think that you look at that and you think about your whole marriage. And if you're blessed with a long marriage, you think of it as like a roller coaster, and there were ups and downs, and there were twists and there were turns. And you look at that and still think that was the best time. That was the best ride. Yes, there were moments where my heart was racing, and yes, there was times where I was fearful, or yes, there was times when we dropped and I thought we were never coming back up. But when we finished the ride, we said that was the most fun. I want to do it again.
Well,
Don't make me be awkward.
this week we've been talking about, in our walk and talks and sit and talks at MTB Fitness. We've been talking about the past and how the past is simply a snapshot. And oftentimes we take that snapshot and carry it with us and make it, our sentence. We identify as that. And I likened a snapshot this week, to back in the day when we used to have photo albums.
Right.
Like I remember my grandparents were big travelers, all over the world. They loved to travel, and it was a big deal to go over to their house
And look through their photo
through their photo albums, and they could tell you all about it. And
They told you the story.
they told you the story about it, and they didn't just pick out one of the worst times and say that was the worst trip ever. Really, is what it was. It was a bunch of snapshots, because then you have to lug this big camcorder around if you wanted to film it, so that we didn't. We didn't have the phones in our pocket, but and we'd go over there and they would tell us about every picture, and the photo album was the story. And I think about, as they are, we always have I don't know if they do anymore, I think they do, but we had a wedding album. Like that was
Yeah.
a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't know if they
I
still
don't know
do
that
that.
they still do that. I think they print their photos and put them on the walls.
Yeah, or keep them digitally and do something.
Yeah.
Um, and really, it's of that day.
Yeah, it was the beautiful day.
It's the most
whole day.
beautiful day, the whole day. And what if we're thinking about, um, that photo album that we have on our last day? Maybe it's, instead of it says our wedding day, that photo album says the last day we were married. And it's full of, each page is maybe when a child is born, when a grandchild is born.
You got me with the grandchild.
No, sorry, kids. I didn't get her with the child. I got her with the grandchild. Good luck, kids. Now you know why the grandchildren are loved more than you.
No, I just think that I think you go through those seasons of life and you take it so for granted.
Hmm.
You know, you get married, and the next step is when you're having a baby, and you have the baby, and as I say to our son who has our grandchildren, enjoy making those memories. Or as I tell some of our younger girls at our gym, when they're tired and they're sleep deprived and they're running this every which direction, and I just always take that moment to say, enjoy those moments. Enjoy the little dress up days at school, and then enjoy those. Throw yourself in the floor and let them cry it out, because they're so small in the whole progression of your life, in your whole span. And so when you say, like, your kids are born and your grandkids, it makes me so emotional, because when my kids were born, I took it for granted. But when your grandchildren are born, you know how precious that those times are. And you can see them fleeting every day. And you just want to just savor every moment of that. And I think that that's what happens in all of our seasons of life, is that you go through that season and you're in the next one, and then you realize, I think I missed some of that. And I think it's the same way in our marriage. Many times you and I can look back, and the kids will talk about different things that we did or didn't do, whatever it
A
might
lot
be.
of didn't do.
Yeah. And so many of those things, I feel like I have a great memory, but so many of those things I don't remember. And it's just simply because it was so hectic that you almost just block that out because you're trying to survive. Um, then the kids move out, and and you just continue going through those seasons.
And I think if we have a family album, I think that looks way different, because in that family album there might be some pictures of each of
Mm-hmm.
us
Mm-hmm.
together doing
Mm-hmm.
things. But if we think about when our kids were little, even in junior high, high school, it would have been filled with them, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the way many of us are.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're looking at our photo album with the last day we were married, and what if it was just filled, and it's going to be just filled with us,
Mm-hmm.
just even when we're in that season, even when the kids are 5 years old, even when they're 10 years old, even when they're in high school and on all the different things. How does our photo album still look? How does it look 5 years after they've left and we're empty nesters?
Mm-hmm. And I, I think for me, I want it to look like they were still so in love. They still held hands. They still always brought the other one up. I always want to be able to be your cheerleader. Even on that last day, I want to be your biggest cheerleader.
My grandparents, um, George and Florence. Florence was about maybe 4'7", maybe on a good day. My grandfather wasn't much taller, but he was probably a little over 5 foot. They lived probably a couple miles from McDonald's, and they would walk there every day for breakfast. And my grandfather wasn't. He loved to give lectures. Loved to give lectures, especially if you're overweight. He'd really give you a lecture. Never been overweight a day in my life. I don't know. He didn't understand that. It just blew his mind. Um, and what's the right word? Not required a lot
Mm-hmm.
from my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And she tolerated a lot.
and she tolerated a lot.
Mm-hmm.
She tolerated a lot. But even to this day, people will comment to me, and whew, they've
Your
been gone
grandmother's
20
been
plus.
gone 20 plus years.
Yeah, yeah, and people still come up to me and mention that they used to just love seeing the sweet older couple walking down the street holding hands.
Mhm.
And even as harsh as my grandfather could be, my grandmother just a sweet lady, um, but he still held her hand. They still held hands. And I think sometimes that's the when we look at our photo album, that's one that definitely goes in there.
Mhm.
It's what do we want our marriage to look like, and that's an outward. I mean, that everybody sees that. But maybe what's the um, and I think we have to be intentional. So if you and I are sitting here thinking about all of our years together that haven't happened yet, what do we want tomorrow to look like? Is really what we're saying.
Mhm.
Um, and being intentional instead of uh, and we've kind of always and one of the things we did and we've talked about is we worked on because we knew one day the kiddos would leave
Mhm.
and we would be empty nesters.
Right.
And so we did work on how do we want that marriage to look? How do we want our relationship to look when we're no longer running around trying to keep up with them?
Mhm.
And so we did work on that.
Yes.
But now we're empty nesters,
Mhm.
and we begin to think, what do we want it to look like in 10 years, in 20 years? How do we how do we want that to look?
Mhm. And how do you want it to look?
You put me on the spot.
I know because I feel like I keep telling you how I want it to look, but you just keep giving stats.
I don't give stats.
We keep giving information.
Sometimes I do that so I can think. Thanks for calling me out on that.
Well, I just am like, I keep telling you how I want it to look, but you haven't said.
And I still haven't said
Well, maybe at the end you'll say.
maybe. I in honesty, um, see if you're not watching this, you think, where did they go?
Are
That,
they still there?
that's Aaron.
Dum-dum-dum,
That's Kim
dum-dum-dum.
leaving Aaron out
I'm dry.
in the sea to
I
drown. Is
said
what it was.
before we got started, and what am I supposed to do if you can't say anything? How am I supposed to sit and talk to this microphone?
I want um, our last day to look back and go that I protected you with my love. That
To everything you did
was
to protect.
thanks for speaking for me. Oh my goodness. Um, it is to protect and it to be that I did it because I wanted to make your life better, and everything I did was to um, make just life better. Whether it's us together, whether it's our experiences, whether it's um, hardships, whether it's challenges, um, that I protected you.
And I want you to know that you will always be my favorite person, even on the last day, and how you did always protect me.
So for me, I would think that for maybe it's our last picture that if you have a last picture like this is our last day, this was our last picture, and you might have a different picture, but I would want it to be that you showed no signs of scars. You showed no signs of scars because I had them.
I think that you do that every day. And I think that anybody in our family would say that.
So I think about those. If we do have that last picture, you've looked through the marriage photo album. You had your on your wedding day photo album, and now you have on the last day of your marriage. What is that last picture? What's that snapshot? That in that snapshot says it all. And I think if you can see that picture, what is that snapshot? And then you reverse it all the way back to now. How is that going to alter my decisions? Am I going to talk a little nicer? Am I going to be a little bit more understanding? Am I going to have a little bit more sympathy? Am I going to be a little more calm? Am I going to be all the things that busy season gets in the way of the kids? Um, you can remember your childhood like nobody's business, but yet some of those things the kids say you don't remember. It's because what was it about your childhood? It was carefree. It was the best because it was carefree.
Because my parents carried the burdens.
Your parents carried the burden. And then nobody told you when you're an adult.
You had to
gotta
carry
the
them.
burden. And the thing is then you carry those into a marriage. And then those burdens get heavy in a marriage. And then we get bogged down in those burdens. And we forget what the last snapshot it is we want it to look like. Not for anybody else to look through our last day of marriage album, but it's for us. It's every experience is this was what we were talking about. For you and I, it's a picnic out on a porch in New Mexico. It's stopping at a roadside park so we can have a picnic. It's driving and just making jokes and having fun. That's the snapshot. It's being goofy together. Those are the snapshots. Having conversations about things we don't want anybody else to know about.
Right.
Those are the snapshots. And I think, and we've been guilty of it, of hardships getting in the way of our conversations, getting in the way of our snapshots of the way we want our marriage to look.
Or selfishness.
Our selfishness. We get in the way.
We get in the way.
Because we put ourselves first instead of our marriage. And not sure if we really gave any lessons today, but it's more about thinking about that snapshot. I think is more than anything.
I think that the lesson is that the challenge is that you picture that last day and how you want that to look, and then you reverse engineer that back to today, and then how are you gonna work through that the rest of your lives, which it could be tomorrow. We're not guaranteed.
We don't know.
So that means that every day you are living in that way that you want that last day to look. And for me, I do feel like that every day you live your life taking all of the battle wounds and all of the scars just so that I don't have to have a hard life.
And I do it because you're back there going, take that scar. That's the way to do it. You
You
go,
are
boy.
so good at that.
You can handle more. Go for it.
I think you're so awesome.
And I can do those things only because you are my cheerleader. It's not saying go get that scar.
It's because I'm rooting you on the whole way. I think that's exactly what you should do. You're so fantastic at it.
Yes. So as you can tell from our conversation today, we have not discussed this a whole lot.
Well, we couldn't because we started crying and we said we'll figure it out.
As you can see, it's kind of raw. So so I might challenge you, almost like if you have that body you want, you'd put it up on your mirror so every day or your refrigerator keep you out of
keep you out of the
peanut
fridge.
butter eggs.
Peanut butter eggs.
But maybe it's that snapshot that you and your spouse discuss, and you talk about it often and say, "Is this because one, it's intentional living,
Yes,
and then it's an intentional marriage. It's a marriage that was intentional, and I think so many times we're unintentional about our marriage, and that's where it kind of gets into some issues." But if we have that snapshot, kind of like if you have that goal body up there, you go, okay, I'm going to make better choices exercising, make better choices eating. I'm not all the different things that changes the choices you make. And our last day married snapshot will change the choices each one of us make with our spouse. And I think that's powerful. But as always, after this emotionally raw episode, we do have a hot take.
We do.
That you weren't prepared for?
It wasn't. I will be.
And while she's getting that, we just had a discussion today in Soul Fit. We share some Bible verses and a lesson from it. We were talking about Hagar and how God found her, and she was asking, needing water, and she wiped away her tears, and there it was. And sometimes I think that's what we need to do is it's there. We just have to wipe our sadness away or hurt from our burdens, those things in the past, to see what we truly have in our relationship with our spouse.
Yes, I agree.
And today's hot take is,
on the day you complete your vows till death do you part, is that a marriage you're proud of? That's what we got.
That's what we got.
What we got today.
Yep, that's the best hot take we may have had. If you're laying in bed together and that's the last moment, is it a marriage you're proud of? Thank you for joining us today on Marriage Hot Takes. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Kim.
And we'll see you next time right here on Marriage Hot Takes.
That's the best words, babe.
What? Not to do some editing, so there's not all that tense sound.
You have the best words, babe.
How?
About the scars.